First of all, Glenn, let's come to you and just talk about how damaging that result was for Manchester United.
Yeah, it's a tough defeat. You know, obviously it's a massive game, and has beat quite comfortably at home, which obviously the Manchester United fans are not going to be too pleased about. But I think in the bigger picture, it's more damaging in the sense that they're so far away from being anywhere near the top of the league, and that they just didn't look like they had a team that could even lay a glove on City.
There was a lot of criticism, Stuart, from the result against Everton at Goodison Park, which you would expect. Did we see elements of improvement, and if so, where did we see them for United?
It was a much improved performance, there's no doubt about that. But, you know, I think they started reasonably well, United. They put United's back two central defenders under a bit of pressure with Rashford's pace, and that looked to be the key asset that they had. But once they got company booked, that's when you're thinking they're going to go on and capitalise, but they couldn't find a pass to open them up and get that first goal, and I think they needed that.
Could they have done much else? You know, the quality that is in City's team is far and beyond many of the other teams, or all the other teams pretty much in the Premier League. Is there anything that Manchester United could have done to approach that game differently? In
the current state, probably not. Obviously, the team low in confidence, and there's a lot of stuff going on in and around the club. And to be fair to them, they started the game quite well. But it's against City, they're the sort of moments you have to get a goal and try to have something to fight for, because obviously City will have so much of the ball, they'll wear you down, and they're obviously going to get a lot of opportunity on goal. So I guess the only way I see them winning that was getting an early goal and then getting everyone behind the ball.
And he's right, we saw in the first half, they did keep them quite close, didn't they? Did you at any point, Stuart, think that perhaps Manchester United could do it?
I think they needed to score first. That was the vital commodity in this game for United. Without scoring that first goal, I think it was always going to be tough. And when you look back from 90 minutes backwards, it looked as though City just ground them down and down and down. And as soon as the first goal went in, you almost looked at the game and thought, I can't see a way back for United here.
You're having your opinion, and there was one man that had his opinion last night as well, one Roy Keane. Have a look at this.
These are the same players that threw Mourinho under the bus, and they will do exactly the same to Ole. Leopards don't change their spots. There's too many bluffers at this club to get United back to the very top. You've got to be up for every game at Manchester United, and the fact Ole's got to discuss it after the game, and again the following few days, about his players not being up for a game of football, he must be hugely embarrassed.
I always say to be the best, you have to beat the best.
What do you think listening to that, Roy?
I wouldn't believe a word he says.
Yeah, that was Roy Keane being very vocal about his thoughts on not just Paul Pogba, but the team in general, calling them bluffers and saying these are the same players that threw Mourinho under the bus, they'll do the same to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. When you saw that, what were your initial reactions, Stu?
I wish Roy would get off the fence and say what I really thought about the game. Just be honest, exactly. Listen, Roy doesn't mix his words, does he? You know, he knows United inside out. He gave an honest assessment of how he saw it. I think, you know, Roy's opinion is really hard line. I think somewhere between the man in the street's opinion and Roy's opinion is where it lies at the moment. United's standards have dropped drastically since Alex had left the club, and how people view Mourinho now has changed a little bit when they've seen the last 10 games of United, and they've probably, you know, when you bear in mind Mourinho's team of last year with a similar group of players ended up winning 2 trophies. So it's really interesting to see how he's viewed after this as well. But listen, Ole's got a lot of work to do in the summer, there's no doubt about that.
Is Roy Keane right? When you look at that team, that Manchester United team, do you think that there are players in there that are underperforming that could be working harder?
Yeah, I think they could all be putting in a bit more of a shift, but you'd probably go through their 11 and say half of them aren't good enough for Manchester United. Obviously, in our day, or certainly my day, when you used to see the starting 11 against United, you used to dread playing against certain players in certain key areas of the pitch, and I don't think this 11 has that.
Why is that? Are there players that could get back that feeling that they scare their opponents, or is this just the influx of players that they have at the moment?
I think player for player, pound for pound, they're not as good as the top 6. They're 6th in the division. That's probably where they should be on the run of things. You've got to give almost Ole credit for him to get the team up near the Champions League positions, because You know, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, look, nowhere near getting in Champions League. At least they're in touching distance of that at this moment in time, and they've had a little bit of a hurrah in the Champions League. You know, it's been a bonus for them, but it's thin margins at times. When you look, you know, the PSG game away from home, they scored in 2 minutes and got themselves back in the game against Barcelona in the first. They hit the crossbar, you know, and it skims over, and you think if that hits the back of the net in Barcelona, does that change the dynamics of it?
We've seen this team with these players show character this season. We're now seeing a different side of them. Ole's come out and said that over the summer he wants to keep the players that have the right character. Do you feel like there are players in that team that perhaps aren't going to survive this summer? And do you have any idea of which ones there might be?
Yeah, I think he would definitely have a big shake-up in the summer. And I reckon you'll probably see a lot of them disappear. But just off the top of my head, I'd think you've got to start with the back four. United are renowned for having two world-class centre-halves that set the benchmark for the team, and they don't have that. And if you want to get into the top four and compete with the big sides, then you have to be solid and you have to be able to sustain a certain amount of pressure.
Do we see this, Stuart, this idea that they don't have vocal centre-backs and a spine from the back forward? Do we see that having a negative effect on David De Gea, or is that a separate issue?
I don't think his form's fantastic at the moment, I must say. They've relied on him so much over many, many seasons, and he's a top-quality goalkeeper, but he's having a rocky moment at the moment. But I'm with Glen on that about the centre-half pairing. You know, in United's history over the last 20 years, they've had two rock-solids at the heart of their backline. And you need to defend well. They're not keeping clean sheets, you know. Top teams keep clean sheets all the time. The top two in the league have got the best defensive records. That's why they're up the top of the league, and you've got to stop letting goals in.
I mean, he's still world-class, would you say, or is he going to lose his place? What happens to De Gea?
No, yeah, of course, he's world-class and he's been so good. He's entitled to have a little dip. I think everyone's just obviously highlighting it more because it's De Gea and obviously how good he is and the goals that have been going in, he usually saves with his eyes closed. So it's a shame to see it happening to him, but that's football and he will bounce back because he is world-class, yeah.
I think there's a lot of talk in football as well about Ole's got a lot to do, a lot of people will leave the club. I've managed a football club. Sometimes the hardest thing to do is get players out the club, let alone recruitment. Recruitment's tough enough. You try and get them out and, you know, without paying them up or whatever, it's not easy to do.
We heard what Roy Keane had to say. Let's hear what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer had to say in response to that.
He's a Man United guy as well. He hurts just as much as anyone else connected to us that we are so far behind City as we are, and of course that's that's my job though to make sure that when we come back pre-season that I have the right characters in and around.
So that was Ole Gunnar Solskjaer talking, and we referenced characters and we referenced the team. We've had a tweet in, this is from Tom, and he says, what happens if Ole doesn't improve the team in 3 years, he says, and will transfers become harder to make in this state at the moment? So I guess it's a case of whether or not they're going to finish top four and they have European football, because we know that attracts players. But how long do you think Ole has? How much grace will this club give him, this club that is a worldwide club?
I think the terraces will give him a little bit longer because of his history with the football club, but football has a history at this moment in time of not giving managers very, very long. And if the owners see the stock of the club diminishing, I think with Ole, I hope they stick with him for the duration personally, because he's a young man learning the trade, and as everyone knows, United need a revamp to get anywhere near the top 2, 3, 4 even.
They need a result as well. They played Chelsea this weekend. It's not going to be an easy game, especially coming off the back of 2 defeats. Yeah,
the confidence is low. Obviously, everyone's talking about them and saying similar things to what we were saying just now. So it's not an ideal game for them by any means. But sometimes they can work in their favour when you know you've got a tough game coming and you know you've got to bring your A game to get something out of it. Sometimes that can give you that little edge to actually get things up and running and try and bounce back.
Does he need help, Stuart? Because there's been talk about the likes of Darren Fletcher coming in, this revamped recruitment strategy. Do you think that is something that Manchester United are missing and that could really aid Ole Gunnar Solskjaer?
Well, you would have thought that that's all in place at the moment, but if you take Ole as a young man that's come, youngish man, let's say, you know, in managerial speak, that's come into a football club, he'll have his hands full on a daily basis. So the more people that can help out doing recruitment, head of football, you name it, that he trusts and the board of directors trust, the better it is for Manchester United and the better it is for Ole and his staff to concentrate on the important things, which are actually coaching the team.